What is going on, everybody? Coming at you here with a live video on a Monday, our aforementioned day after shows, where we go live for the sole purpose of all of you out there. So we can go and invite you on here and be a part of this show here tonight. But nevertheless, I'm Andre Casseday for Charlotte Vibe, your credentialed media source covering the Carolina Panthers. And I think the title and the image that we go ahead and post on the screen right now kind of just says it all, right? Carolina is officially out of the playoff race, the first team in the NFL this season that has been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. Kind of just shows you where things have gone and how things have gone for the team this season. But before we go into it, right, I just want to say a couple of things to everybody out there yesterday who showed us love on all of our socials. Much appreciated. We continue to do this for all of you out there, Chris and I, every single week, covering these games. It's all for the purpose of getting our content out to you and making sure that we're doing everything we can to serve you, the people, because that's what we do around here, right? Speaking of Chris, he will not be on tonight, so this is going to be a solo show. It's just going to be me here for the next, say, 45 minutes to an hour. He is still en route from Tampa Bay, traveling home from the game, so he will not be on tonight. Which will, hey, give us more opportunities to speak to all of you out there. So if you haven't already, go ahead, leave some comments down in the comments section. Give this video a like. It tells us and gives us all out there an opportunity to find out about us, right? We're independent media, so 100% supported by all of you out there. And this will give all of us an opportunity to get our name out there and to spread the word, right? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. We're trying to get out of here, trying to get it to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the season. So hopefully we can do that. And hey, that link is in the description to hop on board and say what's up and be a part of this broadcast here tonight. So definitely utilize that link as well. Before I get too far into it, there is a couple of things that I want to go over with you guys here tonight. Starting with this transaction here from the team. The Panthers made a move today to waive guard Brett Tooth, who played in the Tennessee game last week and was also involved in special teams in the game yesterday. So it continues to be musical chairs at the offensive guard spot, right? I mean, I can't even give you all the names of all the players who have started for us at left guard and at right guard. You name it. I mean, it's just been quite the season for the Panthers in regard to those guard spots. I mean, you had Brady Christensen to start out the year, and of course, with Austin Corbett being out up until recently and now being out again for pretty much the rest of the season. I mean, it's just been quite the scene at that position group. As we have some people file in here. What's up, Shakid? Saying, when can we call in? You can call in right now, man. Hey, that link is in the description. Feel free to come on in and say what's up. And we can talk for as long as humanly possible here. But yeah, that link again is in the description. So feel free to say what's up here as we do every week. This is part of the day after shows where we are part of the conversation, right? We want to hear from you, and we want to be able to hear what y'all have to say, because there was plenty that took place yesterday, right? and we'll kind of dive into some of the things that took place. And let me check to see what's going on with my camera here. Let me um, mess with that real quick. It's kind of flickering in and out, so stand by for a second as we try to get that situated. I think we're good now, so we are back in business in that regard. But yeah, there was a lot that took place yesterday. A lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot of things that still remain to be the case yesterday in regards to how the team played, in regards to a lot of the situational football that took place yesterday, especially with those fourth down calls um, in the fourth quarter that drew a lot of ire from many of you out there who were watching yesterday's game. Um, there's a lot to talk about in that regard. And I want to just talk about Chris Tabor, right? This was his first game. Coaching is interim. And there's a quote that he had in yesterday's press conference, and he reiterated um, that same sentiment today, right? The whole idea of character or compromise, right? He used that phrase a lot in terms of dealing with adversity. And he said it, you can handle it two ways, either with character or compromise. And that is kind of just been the mantra for this whole season in regards to how things have gone, right? You look at the beginning of the year and you look at everything that has happened from week one all the way here now to this most recent game. There was a lot of expectation. There was a lot of hope, a lot of energy, and belief in relation to what we had on our roster. Got a new quarterback, some new skill players, guys who were brought in to help out Bryce. And as the weeks go by, it continues to be obvious that those moves that were made in the offseason were not enough. And it's a personnel thing. At the beginning, we thought it was play calling, and yeah, it still remains that the play calling is an issue. There were many instances of that yesterday, specifically on that third and fourth down call, where they decided to pass instead of running the ball up the middle with Chuba Hubbard. But it's a combination of those two things that continue to give Carolina problems. And we're going to continue to debate the whole, is Bryce Young the guy? Is he the long-term answer? Honestly, you can't fairly judge him off of this season because of the hot garbage that's just surrounding him right now. And while I will always give a rookie quarterback the benefit of the doubt, there is room for criticism in how he has played up to this point. And you have every right to be disappointed. You have every right to be frustrated with the poor play from everywhere around this team. You have every right to be because, again, we were made to believe that at the beginning of this season, all we needed was a quarterback. All we needed was a quarterback to come on in and fix the issues that we've had. I mean, look at him after the game yesterday. If that doesn't tell you anything about the mood of this team, I don't know what will. And then there's Chris Tabor as well in his presser yesterday too. A very somber mood in both of those images. But ultimately speaking, to be the first team eliminated from playoff contention, that's a shock, right? Nobody thought that we would be out of it so soon, so fast, at the beginning of the year, right? And we made our predictions at the beginning of the year, right? Chris and I and a lot of the people in our local media. I was one of those people who thought that they could have contended for a wild card spot. I was one of those people because I believed that there was enough to make that happen. You look at the division, there isn't anything on paper at the beginning of the year that would have suggested that there would have been too many hurdles there. But obviously, that's not the case. We are 1-11 in quite possibly the worst division in football. The Atlanta Falcons are leading the division at 6-6. And you're telling me that we couldn't put it together? A lot of disappointments there in regards to that. But before I go too much into a tangent here, let me go ahead and touch base on some of these comments. For everybody who's tuning in, thank you for popping in and saying what's up. Lord Beazle Dwarf, let's hear it, Andre. Obviously, I tried to, be outspoken in my opinions. And hey, if y'all disagree with anything that I say on here, feel free to hit up that link and we'll have a dialogue because that's what we're all about around here. B Stallion saying, what's up? Hi, Andre. Just curious, after watching the game and looking back at practice, does Bryce Young have an issue with the accuracy of the long ball? Hit Chark not in stride and short. If accurate, Chark walks into the end zone. And yeah, let's talk about that, right? Because that is a play that had a lot of conversation on Twitter yesterday, on social, even into today. First of all, clutch play by Bryce Young to be able to convert on that fourth down. And really, that was the first one of the really couple plays where they actually decided to go deep. And he threw it on a dot. He completed it to Chark. But yeah, you do have to think, had that been Mahomes, had that been any other quarterback really for that matter, I don't want to go down the list, but that could have been a touchdown. Had he led him into the end zone, and he had separation there. DJ Chark, for once, had separation on that goal route. And so that play has definitely been analyzed and overanalyzed, and you can see it from both sides. For me, I'm just glad that he was able to complete that pass in that situation because not only did it extend the drive, it also gave Carolina a chance to make it a game again. And people are going to be nitpicky about that one specific play because it's like, oh man, he did complete the pass, but that should have been a touchdown there. In the moment, I'm just glad that we were able to extend that drive, which ultimately led to the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. But yeah, when you look back on it and you do a deeper dive into what happened and what could have happened, it should have been a touchdown. And I'm a Bryce Young guy, and I'm always going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that should have been 6 right there. That should have been 6 in that moment. Now, obviously, that's been a question this whole season. Does Bryce Young have a cannon? Does Bryce Young have the arm strength to be able to be a successful quarterback in the NFL? I do think the answer is yes. But we still need to see more, right, over these next couple of weeks to kind of justify that thought process. He did it at Alabama. Who's to say he can't do it here? But yeah, that should have been a touchdown there. Looking back on it, absolutely 100%. Because again, you need points in that situation. And you want to be able to score as quickly as you can. And Carolina did make it a game. And in that situation, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but um, the way that I see it, I was just glad that we were able to make it happen in that situation because had he not completed that ball, that game really would have been over at that point. Lord Beazle Dwarf saying it was pouring out and he hit that deep ball at B Stallion. Now, it was pouring in the first half. So, from that aspect, that could have made sense. But it tapered off really after the start of the second half. So, we can't definitively say that the weather was an impact in how that play unfolded. Maybe it had a bit of an impact because the ball was probably still wet. You name it. But the conditions at that point improved to where you could call a play like that and for it to be successful. Kellen Beam saying a lot of good LOL. Hey, look, Kellen. I'm trying to accentuate the positive, and I know there hasn't been a lot this season, but there's still some things that you can take away from yesterday's game, and you can be like, hey, Carolina showed some fight. They actually felt like they had a chance to come back and win that game. And they had multiple opportunities where they were down, but they were able to claw back into the game and actually kind of make a game of it. So, in regards to your comment, you look at the long term view of how things have gone, and yeah, it's been nothing but putrid. But when we look at the game yesterday, while there were still some things that made you want to hit your head against the wall, there were some things that a Chris Tabor led team displayed that were a tad bit encouraging. And we'll get into those moments here in a little bit. Yeah, comparatively speaking. Shakid said he tried to call in. Okay, so let's see if I can get that link popped up here. Okay. Everybody out there, we are now able to do call ins. I had the interview button turned off on my side of things. So for everybody who has tried to call in, do it again. We should be able to get that working now. So yeah, I just had it turned off on my end of things. We had to do a little bit of some shifting here with Chris's account on our software here, our eCam software. So there are some settings that were turned off inadvertently, but now it should be ready to go in that regard. B Stallion with another comment. I apologize, but the throw was short and behind the receiver, which it was. There's no disputing that. If it's hit in stride, he walks into the end zone. The receiver had to slow down and come back to get the ball. That's just how I saw it. I can't be wrong, though. Thoughts? I don't think you're wrong, B Stallion. I don't think you're wrong. I mean, like I said earlier, he had to slow down to get that ball. And had that ball been thrown out further towards the end zone, then hey, he would have made that catch in stride. So obviously, um, there's some question marks with Bryce Young's long ball ability. And part of the reason why we have those question marks is, again, there haven't been too many instances where we have seen those explosive plays. Partly because, again, of the play calling, and partly because of these receivers not being able to get open and taking forever to get open. So that's the part of it where, yeah, there's a give and take there, and yeah, it's a fair criticism. Even Chris has said it, and I've had to give him some pushback on it because I want to hear about why he feels that way. And he makes valid points. We want to see more consistency in his long ball, and we want to be able to see more of those opportunities to have those attributes be put on display. Supernova Moore, what's up, man? Glad to have you in. Bryce might not be the answer. You may feel that way now, and obviously there is a pretty reasonable sample size for that point. You compare him to CJ Stroud, and it's a light and day difference in how the two have performed. Obviously, with CJ Stroud, he has more to work with, and yeah, that's part of the debate that everybody is having. And look, he's a rookie quarterback, and typically with any of these situations, right? I want to give up until Thanksgiving of year 2 with any rookie quarterback to fully justify how I feel about them, right? Because the sample size is big enough, about 20 to 25 games, to where you're like, okay, this is what we're working with. This is what we have and what we don't have, that sort of thing. I'm not going to make my judgments on Bryce after 1 year. It's not fair to him, especially with the lack of talent that he has had to work with. And let me also just say this too. That doesn't mean we can't criticize Bryce. And that also means that we can't point out some of those things that we've noticed about him, right? He's not good enough to overcome deficiencies surrounding a team, right? That's just an evident fact. And so he's not great in that regard. And that's okay. He can develop to be great sooner rather than later, of course. But as of right now, he is not good enough to overcome a team's dysfunction. And not many quarterbacks are able to overcome dysfunctional messes that are surrounding them. Like, look at Patrick Mahomes, for example. Arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. They just lost last night to the Packers. And their offense is a little bit to be desired, right? Rather than Travis Kelce, you got a bunch of rookies surrounding him. Obviously, he has made it work, and he's going to continue to make it work because it just shows you how great of a quarterback he is. But there are concerns about what they're doing in Kansas City right now and the inability to get explosive plays like they once were able to do. So again, everything comes down to a situation that quarterback is in, and it also comes down to noticeable steps in improvement. And this is where I will get on Bryce on about. Have we seen anything yet? And feel free to leave those comments down below. Have we seen anything yet that would indicate that he is improved from what we saw in week 1 to what we saw here yesterday? There hasn't been that noticeable leap yet. There hasn't been that one game where you're like, again, this is why we picked Bryce Young number 1. He hasn't had that game where you're like, okay, that pick was justified. He hasn't. And so we're still waiting on that moment. I mean, you're thinking of the Houston game where he beat CJ Stroud. That was his best game so far this season. When you look at Miami and how he started in Miami, that was probably his best start to a game that we have seen so far. But he has not put together a game a full game where you're like, okay, yeah, I can see why Carolina wanted him. And that's a fair criticism to say at this point. We're 12 games into the year and we're still waiting on it. We are still waiting on it. So, to Supernova Moore's point, he may not be it now, but you got to give it time. You got to let things develop. And I think the way that this season has gone could be a blessing in disguise. And I know none of you want to hear that right now because you're 1 in 11, worst record in the NFL. But this season has humbled him. This season has humbled him. And it's going to reinvigorate some of those things that are within him to be like, hey, yo, I got to get back in the lab. I got to start, got to start doing some things to better improve not only my game, but also his physique as well. Um, he looked awfully small yesterday and really this whole season. So that's going to give him an opportunity to bulk up and, try to add a little bit of muscle on that 80-pound frame, if you will. But nevertheless, we'll go with another comment here. Shaquille Bartal, I had the Panthers winning 9 to 10 games. Yeah, I mean, that was at that time, at the beginning of the year, that was fair to say because of all the people that we brought in with our coaching staff. So much hype around the experience and the talent that we were able to bring in that regard. Everything felt like an upgrade at that point. I mean, people were saying, man, Steve Wilkes would not have been able to bring in that kind of staff. And hey, that could be true. That could be true. But this staff has not produced. Winning 9 to 10 games, that seemed reasonable. Winning one game out of 12, if you would have told me that back in August and September, oh boy, that would have been a doozy of a conversation. Kellen Beam with another comment. For what we gave up for Bryce Young, I feel like we should know he was the right pick regardless of the cast around him. And I agree to an extent. We did leverage a lot of draft capital to get him. And obviously, when you do that, there's going to be added pressure on that individual to perform and to get the job done and get results. And like the rest of the team, and he's part of it as well, those results have not produced anything. Those results are what are getting people fired and what are getting people put on the hot seat. And it's not just Bryce. There's other people involved with it. I mean, this is a team thing as well. But you do have to feel a little disappointed. And I can share in some of that disappointment, but also still be a believer in Bryce. Again, going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a rookie quarterback. He's going to have some struggles, and he's had more struggles than successes up to this point. But, yeah, man, when you trade up to that number one pick, that pick means a lot. And that value to that pick means so much to an organization. And given what we know right now and all the things that have happened up to this point, yeah, it definitely feels like a miss. But again, you can't base it off of one season. This will be something that we'll be debating for years to come. But up to this point, yeah, it has definitely been a massive disappointment. Supernova Moore saying Bryce, maybe. Yeah, I am saying a lot of maybes, right? Because again, it still remains to be seen. But when we look at everything that has happened up to this point, Supernova, you have every right to feel the way that you feel right now. I have every right to be disappointed with how things have gone with this team and how our QB1 has performed up to this point. But again, if we're going to keep playing musical chairs at quarterback like we have the past 3 years, you got to stick with somebody at some point. And whether Bryce is or isn't that guy, you can't go ahead and, move off of it. I don't think anybody's suggesting that, but if you are thinking that, I mean, what's it to you? It just would not bode well for the team and how much they gave up to get him. And then, yeah, it's just not a good situation in that regard. Willie Smith commenting, keep pounding 2023. Yes. This has been a difficult season, right? Probably the worst season that I have seen from a fan and from a professional level. I mean, this is my second year covering the team. Obviously, worse than last year in regards to how things have turned out. But it's up there, folks, for one of the tougher seasons that, as a fan, that I have seen. I mean, it is right up there with 2010. I don't know what we can say about in regards to 2001 because I was 1 year old in 2001, so I can't really say too much about that. But it's definitely up there with the 2010 season and how that season went. Bryce Young is tougher than a lot of people thought. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the fact that he has been able to, for one, stay healthy after being sacked, what was the number, like 45 times or so up to this point in the year, um, you got to give him credit for that. Um, you know, people keep bringing up his stature, his frame, his size to knock him, right? And to those people that still think that way, look at how he has been able to stay durable throughout the course of this season. I mean, he missed a game in week 3, but otherwise than that, he has stayed healthy throughout the course of this season. You look at a guy like Anthony Richardson, who is approaching 240, and he's out for the year. So while having a smaller frame could increase your risk of injury, and it may not be as sustainable in regards to being out there because of that risk, he has been able to tough it out this season from a physical standpoint. I think mentally, to me, that has been the bigger test for him. But I think he has handled it as well as he possibly could under the circumstances. But you can tell that it is weighing down on him. I mean, I'm going to keep going back to this image here of this presser from yesterday. Just look at the body language. He's defeated. He's beat up physically and mentally. So I think from that aspect, to me, that's been the bigger test for him. But I think he's done a pretty good job in making it happen and continuing to not accept or place blame on his teammates, but always being at the forefront of, hey, look, that one's on me. I got to be better. And he has said that repeatedly over these past couple of weeks in these pressers, and I've been impressed with his leadership in those moments where, hey, there is a lot of heat. There is a lot of criticism in how the team has performed and how he has performed. And he has always been able to say, hey, look, I am not going to put anybody under the fire for that one. That is completely on me. And again, his leadership in that regard, and his ability to be a good teammate, and the ability to try to keep people focused and motivated in these tough situations. That has impressed me. And I think, that will be those kinds of qualities there moving down the road that will ultimately lead to more success for him and for the team. Kelly Beam saying, keep pounding 2026. I think that's the year that you think Carolina is going to make it back to the playoffs, 2026. I hope it doesn't take that long because, man, that is quite a bit of time from now. Like 3 seasons? Let's keep moving forward here with some of these comments. Shakid with another comment saying, honestly, I think the problem with Bryce, number one, he doesn't have enough time to throw the ball. The talent is very bad. Chris might be a better player than some of the receivers on this team. I think you nailed it right on the head, Shakid. We are talent deficient in these key positions, right? Receiver. Adam Thielen is your best receiver. And again, I keep saying this, but this is not a knock on Adam Thielen. But if Adam Thielen is your best receiver in the room, then it kind of just shows you the lack of talent that we have in that receiver room. And it also comes down to the fact that we just don't have any afterburners. We don't have much speed on the perimeter. And you look at the game yesterday with how Tampa Bay was playing them. Again, week by week, whether it's Tampa Bay or Tennessee, whomever we have played, they love to play our receivers tight because they know they're not going to beat them over the top. That's why our offense is ranked second to last overall. You can look at all the major statistical categories and it kind of just backs up what we're saying here. Bryce does not have time to throw the ball. And when he does get time, those receivers are taking forever to break out of their routes in order to get open. So when you mix those two together, I mean, it's basically impossible for any quarterback to be successful under those circumstances. And that's not an excuse to Bryce, right? It's not, because we expect him to continue to perform despite those deficiencies. But again, you have to take everything that you're seeing right now with this team with a grain of salt because let's just be real about it. When you don't have a reliable tight end, when you don't have a true number one, when you don't have time to throw the ball, it's going to be tough. It's not impossible to succeed, but it makes it tougher to succeed. And that's what we're seeing right now. Willie Smith with a comment. And again, to everybody out there who has tuned in, thank you very much. These shows are dedicated to all of you out there. Thank you for leaving those comments. And again, utilize that link down in the description. I have my end of things figured out. Go ahead, click that link. I'll have you join this broadcast and say whatever it is that is on your mind right now. Because there's a lot that has happened with this team in recent weeks, with the game yesterday, and with the team being mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. There's a lot to talk about right now. So feel free to hop on board if you are able to as well. As the head coaching talks begin, this is from Willie Smith, let's not look for an offensive-minded coach because the last one did not work out. Also, the Houston head coach is a defensive coach. He is having a lot of success. I'm going to have to disagree with you, Willie. I think when you look at this job, there are 2 factors that are going to dictate the market for whom we are looking for. obviously you want an offensive-minded head coach because your investment is with Bryce Young. And when you're looking at this job, what are we looking at? Why do we want to take this job rather than the money? Because David Tepper is going to have no choice but to pay up some good deal of cash to get over here because this team does not have a lot of leverage. Look at all the coaches that we've been through. But you need to tailor your system and the brain power and the brain trust that you have in that room around your investment, which is Bryce Young. You want somebody that can, for one, be a believer in Bryce Young and somebody who can put those players in position to be successful. And so while a defensive head coach wouldn't be something that I would be totally against, at the same time, a lot of your teams that have won in recent years, won Super Bowls in recent years, have been offensive-minded head coaches, and that's where the game is going. We need somebody who is bright, who is innovative, and who can be somebody that can use the strengths to our team's advantage. And again, having a defensive-minded head coach wouldn't be the end of the world to me, but ultimately my preference would be a guy that specializes in that side of the field. Willie Smith, thank you for that comment there. Always appreciate the comments that you guys are leaving. Lord Bieseldorf, I still think you can't completely be down on Bryce. The game is about momentum and getting in rhythm for the quarterback. That has been impossible to do because of the O-line play. I mean, we have J.J. Jansen playing. Yeah, it's, again, another fair point where the circumstances around Bryce, to me, is what is hindering his play from being what we've seen in the past. Now, some of that is also on him, but I don't fully place the blame on him because, look, I don't even know if a prime Cam Newton, would be able to have much success with what we have right now. I mean, he did have success with guys like Brenton Burson and Devin Funches and Keelan Clay and that receiving core in 2017. It's before the injury, of course. But, I mean, it's just, to me, it's like, what do you expect the guy to do? But also at the same time, we're 12 weeks in. I want to see something, I want to see something. But again, thank you for your comment there. Willie Smith, again, the team that Bryce Young is on is bad. I would expect the coaching staff would have made adjustments a lot earlier in the season. The head coach, Frank Reich, did not put this team in a position to win. Yeah, and I think piggybacking on, this whole all-star coaching staff, right? You would think that they would have the capability to make those adjustments. And we never saw it. We just never saw it. There are more adjustments that I saw in how Carolina played yesterday in regards to Bryce Young in the offense than I saw from Frank Reich over the course of 10 games. Look, we saw Bryce Young more under center. We saw Bryce Young being utilized in the rollout game off of play action, which is what he does well. Which is why it bothers me, and it bothered me when Frank Reich said that, when the question was brought up about him not being under center as much, it just made no sense for him to be in the pistol in some of these situations, which ultimately kind of hindered his ability to perform in some of those situations. But yeah, that was the frustrating thing because to me, when you look at that tenure with Frank Reich and the lack of urgency, I think that's what got to a lot of people because he would always say, hey, I'm an experienced guy. I'm somebody that's been in the league for a while. I've seen this before. We will make the tide turn. It never happened. 1-4, 1-5, whatever the records was, and yet seemingly week after week after week, we were seeing the same thing over and over again, and nothing seemed to change. And I think that's ultimately what sped up the timeline for Frank Reich and ultimately got him fired. Now, I do think in that regard, I felt a little bit more calm earlier in the season because, with how things started out, you would think, hey, this is just the beginning of the year. Things will ultimately work its way out, but it just never did. And again, you talk about it right there in your comment there, the lack of adjustments, the lack of changes is ultimately what got Frank Reich fired and kind of did Bryce Young a disservice. Squeaky Cheeks with a comment there. I like the username. Frank was a problem. Bryce is a problem. Tepper is a problem. Fitterer is a problem. It's going to take a long time to get this back on track. I will agree with 3 out of the 4 people being the problem. Definitely Frank was the problem. He wasn't the main source of the problem, but he was a byproduct of the problem of the other 2 people that I will mention. David Tepper, Scott Fitterer. I think when you look at Scott Fitterer, let's just go ahead and say it. He's not going to make it after this season. There have been conversations about, his future here in Carolina after this season. I don't think he makes it after this year. Due in part with the talent that we gave up under his watch, the amount of dead money that we have under his watch, players that are not even on this roster, and yet we're still paying them a boatload of money. This most recent free agent class underperforming, this draft that he just had, bit of a disappointment. And this has been going on for 4 years. And so I think 3 years is more than ample enough time for anybody in this setting to figure it out and to get things under control. Obviously, we haven't made the playoffs in any of his seasons here in Carolina. And while he has made some moves and he has been aggressive in a lot of moves that he has made in the past, I think, a combination of that with the swinging and the missing of a lot of key acquisitions, it may be time. It may be time to clean house. And I think with how this season has gone, especially, that's going to speed up that timeline. David Tepper, a guy that is too involved, and we all see it. Year 6 as owner of the team just is not somebody that has done enough to justify how involved he is with the team. It just doesn't make sense. And obviously he's the owner, and obviously he's going to be involved in what he is owning, the team, obviously. But it just doesn't make sense for somebody to, especially on a weekly basis, talking to his football people. You got to let people do their jobs. And the constant meddling and the constant snooping around, if you will, with this team, it doesn't benefit anybody. And while I know he means well, and I do feel like that he does have right intentions in bringing a winner to Carolina, the impulsiveness is what continues to be a hindrance to this team. It's a problem. And it's a problem that's only going to get worse the more he is involved and the more that he uh, puts his input on these key decisions, because at this point he has not hit on any of them. Lee Benjamin saying that Bryce Young has no protection. He's been sacked like the English at Normandy. How is he supposed to show what he can do? And hey, you're right on the dot with that one. It's impossible to fully and fairly gauge what Bryce Young has done this season. Now, it is fair to criticize the the duds that he's had up to this point. Being 1-11, that's not a good look on anybody, and that criticism is to be deserved. But again, yeah, I mean, he can only do but so much. And like I said earlier in the broadcast, he is not great enough to overcome the deficiencies surrounding him. He's just not. And it's rare to have somebody who can come in and overcome organizational failures. You can probably count a handful of guys in the NFL right now who would fit that narrative, but obviously Bryce is not that guy in that regard, but he can be a guy that can lead a team to some success, but ultimately it's not being shown because of, again, the lack of talent surrounding him. That to me was probably the greatest disservice that the team did to him, especially in a rookie year, because you need your investment to shine. And that investment has not shined up to this point as of yet. Kellen Meme, I guess I meant that as more of an indictment on the front office than on Bryce Young. I get what you were putting down there. I don't want to, look too far deep into that, but that's definitely the case there. Lee Benjamin with some breaking news. Let's go ahead and get the sirens for this one here. Horn just got hurt high-fiving too hard. Bruce Palmy will be unavailable until Game 2 of next year. But all kidding aside, though, I mean, it was good to see J.C. Horn back out there. Because, look, he's getting to the point to where Willie Smith with with that comment there. But let me put that one back up. But regardless, yeah, he's getting to that point now where, hey, it's make or break time with him, right? He's not a bad player. I don't think anybody's disputing that. It's just the fact that he has not been available for a good majority of this time here in Carolina. And for somebody who was drafted as high as he was, and for him to not be out there, that's a tough pill to swallow. And that's part of your skill, and that's part of your talent, is being available. Availability is key in anything that you do. And I think for him, this stretch coming up here, these next 5 games, are really going to, indicate where he is at in regards to, for one, his health, but also for his long-term future, because his fifth-year option is coming up next year. And Carolina does have the opportunity to accept or decline that fifth-year option. I think J.C. Horn can be a part of the future for this team. He is still a young player. But if he keeps getting hurt, man, it's hard to justify him being a part of that long-term future for the team. Kellen Beam, can we talk about why we can't get 1 yard when we need it? What happened to Dalton coming in for QB sneaks? Where is Spencer Brown? Can we not just give Derek Brown the ball as a fullback? Yeah, let me touch base on this here, and we'll go through a couple of comments, and then I think we will start to wrap it up here. And Chris Tabor talked about this in his presser today as well. Uh, those two plays, those two consecutive plays on third and fourth down, where they decided to not run the ball. First of all, when I saw that Miles Sanders was in on both of those plays, I was like, great. Kind of have a feeling where this is going. Because you know one thing, Miles Sanders is not a power back. He's just not. So you know they're not running the ball up the middle. So you're thinking, okay, so they're probably going to try and do some sort of play action fake, try to get something quick, get Bryce on the run and moving. I'm perfectly fine with that. But when you do it on back-to-back plays and on the fourth down play, it was just a straight up pass. Again, it just shows you the lack of a physical presence in that running back room. Chuba Hubbard is probably the closest guy that we have to a power back. But there were so many moments in that game yesterday, not just with these plays, but where there were like 3rd and 2, 3rd and manageable kind of situations. And we could not pick up a first down because of a lack of a physical threat coming out of the backfield. And it was infuriating. And this last part of your comment here, why can't we just get Derek Brown the ball? Yeah. Where's the creativity? Where's the uniqueness in our play calling? Show the defense a different look. Do something. Do something that gets the defense on their heels. Do something that the defense would not expect us to do. Bring out a guy like Derek Brown. Bring out a guy like Shy Tuttle. Bring out a guy like a Cade Mays. We saw a lot of that last year where we had people who were in a 10-unit set, whether as a fullback or as another spare offensive lineman. Do something that you know you can guarantee that you can get a yard out of it. Because who's going to stop Derek Brown? Who's going to stop Shy Tuttle in those situations? I mean, and Kellen Beam again here. I watched Shy Tuttle as a fullback and Derek Brown as a running back. Let's call it the BBC package. Back club. I like it. And again, it just comes down to, or big back club. My bad. But yeah, it's just that lack of imagination and creativity there. Shakid with a comment. AC, I am assuming Chris is not on tonight because he is trying out a receiver for the Panthers today. Well, he is en route from Tampa Bay back to Charlotte, but who knows? I mean, that was probably his alibi that he had so that he could go in to to the practice facility up in Charlotte to get a tryout in. I mean, that would be quite funny there. Kellen Beam with another comment. JC was one of the higher rated PFF graded players this past game. Yeah, him and Derek Brown. They were both in the 90s. So, I mean, again, it's not like JC Horn's a bad player, and he gets a bad rap for it. And again, it's not because of the fact that he can't play on the field. It's just he hasn't been available. And so that's where all that comes from as well. Fayette Nom 26 with a comment. Scott Fitterer is really to the blame for the team's struggles this season and last season. Yeah, I would say, especially in this season, with everything that he has said coming into the year, basically saying that the roster was built and all we needed to put in was a quarterback and his job was done. His job's not done. Maybe here it is because he won't be here after the season, but there were so many deficiencies with this roster, and he is the one to blame for it. It's not Bryce Young's fault that the O-line can't protect or the receivers can't win versus man or zone coverage. Bryce can't block, throw, and catch it himself. Get over it, CJ Wishers. Bryce isn't the problem. And I think we were going to end it off on that. You were right on the money on that one, my friend. Bryce is definitely not the problem. But at the same time, we have every right to criticize his play to a degree. Obviously, he is the product or the byproduct of the rest of the team and the lack of talent that surrounded him. But we can also be fair in our criticism in his play, which hasn't been out of this world, obviously. But we can also say, hey, look, we expect a little bit more out of you. Obviously, it's tough to ask for in this situation, but it is fair to say that we want to see more out of him and we want and expect more out of him. He knows that. Everybody in this building in Carolina knows that. I know the fans know that. And I think we can all decipher um, the fact that, hey, while he hasn't played well, and it's not because of him, I would say 30-70. That's the ratio that I would give it. But he does deserve some of the blame. But he is the last of Carolina's problems. I can guarantee you that. He is this team's future. And if we do the right thing by getting some competent people around him at the head coach spot and up in management, things will blossom. And this little caterpillar that's in the cocoon right now can turn into a butterfly, and things can finally take off for this team because we would like to see some winning around here in Carolina. And I know a lot of the people who are quick to judgment right now, I'm going to give them some benefit of the doubt because, hey, we are so deprived right now with this team in terms of the lack of success that we've had over these past couple of years. So I'm going to give some people the benefit of the doubt because of the, just based off of the pure fact that we just have not had a winner here in quite a bit of time. And we are starving for victories and we are starving for success here in Carolina. But he is the last of this team's problems. And it may be a while before we can get back into it, but I do think that we have somebody here with Bryce Young. It's going to take time, but folks, what are our other options, right? Andy Dalton, he may give you more immediate success, but he's obviously not the future. Lee Benjamin, let me go ahead and get this comment on the board before we hop out of here, who just popped in. Chuba and Frankie are the only guys having above average seasons. Maybe Derek Brown. We need some kind of talent and then some coaching that doesn't fail them. I think Frankie Luvu and Chuba Hubbard have been, guys that have really stepped it up here in their time. Chuba, I believe this is his second or third season. Fact check me in the comments section if I am wrong. Frankie Luvu, this is his second season here in Carolina, and hey, he's playing for a contract. So that's part of the motivation there. Adam Thielen, a standout as well. But again, there's been a lot of disappointments on this team. Brian Burns has been a tad bit of a disappointment, but at the same time, he's undisputedly our best defensive player and our best pass rusher. So, but you do have to give some criticism on his side of things as well. But yeah, I mean, there are a couple of guys I thought would have broken out this year, Terrace Marshall being one of them. Part of it is because of, I guess, the coaching staff not believing in him, and part of it is self-inflicted. And then another guy as well, Jeremy Chin. He wasn't even out there yesterday on the defensive side of things, which is a travesty. Like, why do you have Alex Cook in there over Jeremy Chin? That really raised my eyebrows as well, but that's a conversation for another day. But ultimately, you got to give Chuba Hubbard and Frankie Luvu some credit because they have played some rather good football here, and probably a couple lone bright spots on really a season that has been a massive disappointment. With that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it on up here. We are at the hour mark. So, for everybody that has tuned in here tonight, I want to say thank you. I want to thank all of you again for your flexibility. Showing me love, obviously, because with Chris, he's the guy that you tune into. He is the star of the show, and I'm here to just be a support system to that. But again, to everybody out there, again, I appreciate the love, appreciate all the support, and hey, that's why we're here. We want to be here for all of you. We go live on Mondays, every Monday, to hear what you all have to say, and it's fun. It's cathartic because with how things have gone this season, these mental health Mondays give me an opportunity as well to try to at least let out some of that anger and frustration that I feel too, as well as a fan, in trying to do so. So, for everybody that tuned in tonight, I want to say thank you. Continue to smash that like button. Tell a friend about us here at Charlotte Vibe. We're still trying to keep at it here, trying to get it up to 10,000 subscribers. So, tell us what we are all about here. Tell your friend, everybody out there, about what we do here. Independent media supported 100% by all of you out there. For everybody out there tonight, for Charlotte Vibe, I am Andre Casseday. Have a good night, everybody, and we will be talking with all of you here very soon. Take it easy and be well.